All right, let's take a look at this Lucio. Ooh, good map for him too. Boops for days.
Come on, let's bring it together. Empty your mind.
There's nothing wrong with the habit. In fact, he's not good at habit.
You can't, you can't be a hand in the main.
All right. First, before we start, let's talk about Lucio's kit for a second because, yeah, it can be a little tricky. Lucio, it's one of those heroes that has a low floor and a very high ceiling, meaning that it's easy to start playing Lucio. It's very hard to master playing Lucio. Um, so Lucio's big advantages, and what Lucio brings to the table is the speed boost here. He's got speed, song, and healing song. Um, and what he does that no other support hero can do is the speed itself. So that is your big contribution to the team. Being able to get them in and out of fights, in and out of engagements, what they call bussing them back from spawn, making sure they get there, and really you're setting the pace of the game with your speed boost. So it's important to know when to speed and when to heal. Hopefully, we'll see some good opportunities to look at different times, different situations in which you want to speed and which you want to heal. Amp it up, super important to keep that in mind. When should you be using that? That is not something I see a lot of Lucios spam that, and just like every time it's up, they'll amp it up, and that's the key difference between the a decent Lucio and a really good Lucio is knowing when to amp it up, when not to. Not the last thing. The other thing is his attacks. His damage comes from his blaster, which does not that much damage. I mean, if you can nail 3 or 4 headshots then in a row, then yeah, he can be a DPS style character. But with the speed of his projectiles, it's hard to do that. You've got to take a really long time to practice Lucio aiming, and especially with very mobile heroes that it's not linear in their movements, it's extremely hard to do. So really the way you want to be thinking about that is not like a DPS Lucio in terms of his I mean on computer it's left click, but regular trigger fire, like that's not you're going to want to use that in more like spam. You know, heroes are coming from certain doorways or whatever, you can spam some shots, get some poke damage, that kind of stuff. The other form of damage is the boop. In my personal opinion, the most fun part of Lucio's kit. But that's really not a damage dealing thing. That's to create space. So the way you want to think about that is when you have a flanker or somebody getting in your face, you want to use boop to either get them away from you or get them away from an ally. Um, the number one thing you can do with your boop is if you have someone like an Ana or a Zen on your team as the other healer, they have 0 mobility. They are super slow. They are stuck on the ground. So if they're by themselves and a flanker gets to them, they are most of the time toast. So that's when you step in and you'll be able to boop them out of the way, giving the Ana or the Zen a little space to breathe, a little room. You can help support with healing, or you can help with a little extra damage, that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind with your other healer. Last thing is the ult, the sound barrier. super high amount of shields for a very short amount of time. And there's two ways you can think about that. You can think about that as a counter ult. So if you hear a Genji Blade go off, you hear a Grav, you can counter, or like a Reaper ult, you can counter that by dropping the beat. Or you can use it as a fight initiator or sustainer in the middle of a key team fight. And the difference between the two is based on the other healer that you have on your team. So if you have another healer who has like a counter ult like Zen's Trance, um, have Zen save his ult for the blades or the reapers, that kind of stuff, and you can use yours more as like a sustain or engage type ult. If you have somebody like Mercy, Valk is a sustain or engage support ult. You don't. It's Valk is not going to counter a Grav. So in that case, you would then become that counter ult support player. So that's important to keep in mind going forward. Also, another thing that a lot of people misunderstand is the difference between main and off healers. And I'll admit that I kind of misunderstood this for a while. But after playing many of the supports for many hours, I've kind of reconsidered what I consider a main healer and an off healer. And again, this might be I might be in the minority, or this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to stick to it. My main healers: Mercy and Lucio, if you're playing them correctly. Off healers: Zen, Ana, Moira. Um, so traditionally, I'm not including Brig and I'm not including Symmetra because I don't necessarily consider them true heroes. They're support players, but they're not true healers. Um, Sim doesn't provide much healing or much support at all. More of a utility player, kind of like Torb. And Brig is only really like a band aid. Like she'll pop her E onto, or sorry, not E, the armor pack onto people when they're crit, but that's just about it. It looks like Mercy. So most people think of main as being can output the most healing, in which we often see Ana and Moira over here in this column, and Lucio over in this one. But um, the reason I have this the way it is mobility. So Mercy and Lucio both have permanent mobility in which they can escape from team fights when they're being dove. Um, Lucio has the speed boost, Mercy has the guardian angel to always get them out of trouble. So they should be dying very few times. They do not need support in order to stay alive. Zen, Ana, Moira. Zen and Ana have zero mobility, like I was mentioning before, so they will always need someone to come help them out, whether it's you as the other support to pocket them when they're getting dove, or it's like a McCree or a Diva to come peel for them when they're in trouble. Moira, like you can make the argument that Moira could be main because she has the teleport ability. I forgot what it's called, but that's a fairly large cooldown. I think it's about 10 seconds. So use that once, and you have somebody like a Genji who is fairly mobile, or a Tracer. Once Moira uses that fade, that's what it is. Yeah, once she uses the fade once, she's done. She's pretty much stuck, and she needs the support just like Zen or Ana does. So that's why I kind of put her over there. Again, this is not a popular opinion in terms of defining these or putting these into categories, but I think it's super important to think about when you're playing that. Who has the mobility to survive on their own? Who does not? Because as Lucio, once you think about mobility, you then kind of redefine your role on the team as someone who is there for these other heroes when they need it. You're not just there for the other healers, or sorry, the other tanks and DPS to heal them. You're there to support these off healers as well and make sure that they can do the job that they need to do. Okay. Yeah, so Lucio, this is not the greatest Lucio map of the three. This is probably the worst one. Still totally viable, um, but there's no real advantage of the boops. The speed on Koth maps is huge, gets you to the point faster, or gets you to where you want to be engaging faster. So hopefully you're going to take advantage of that. So let's see, let's check it out.
Just came out.
Why does he only play haven't
Let's look at that team comp. So we've got dive, 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 not dive, not dive, but I guess you could run it. Maybe, I don't know. And sort of dive-ish, dish. It's a dish. Not your typical dive, but I guess you can run it because of the speed, so that's fine. Interesting comp. I understand why they want to run Roadhog for the hooks on the later maps, but your Winston is probably going to have a lot of trouble sustaining unless they can maintain their cooldowns well, and you're going to have to make sure that your Winston knows to come back to you wherever you are, you and the Zen, to get healing. You're not necessarily going to be up there. The Zen's definitely not going to be up there when the Winston dives. You might be able to kind of trail behind a little bit, but you can't be right in that front. You're going to get melted because he's going to be pretty much by himself.
is a shark?
Okay, this is good. This is good. Nothing you did was terribly wrong. Just this is a good example of how you want to switch your mentality as Lucio. So first thing, always make sure that you're keeping an eye on this number. Oops, the number that's right there. That tells you how many other heroes are within your AOE, which you know by the circle that's drawn around you at all times. So you want to try to keep that as high as possible, depending on the situation. Like if you know Genji is flanking, then like the max you can get out of that is 4. If you've got Genji flanking and Hanzo on the high ground, then you want to make sure that you're with your tanks and your other healer. They're all within there, getting the benefit. If that drops to like 1 or 2 or 0, there's really no point in you being there as a Lucio. So you want to reposition yourself. Also, the big benefit of Lucio is that speed. So you're trying to get other people to where they need to be quicker. Once they're there, that's when you can switch over to heal. So you did it. So right here, you stop, and that's fine if you guys are planning on like kind of like quick regroup right before you engage in the fight. Make sure you're all there and ready to go. But you kind of stop, and if you're ever like staying within an area and people are just kind of hovering there, the speed isn't really that important. That's a good time to switch over to healing, especially like you see Hammond coming in, you know he's going to slam down. This would be a good opportunity right now to switch over to healing because they're going to be stunned in that drop anyway, so they're not going to be moving. There's no point in you having that, and you know they're going to take some damage right off the bat. Good opportunity to switch over to healing and amp it up right there. You do that. You do it a little late. From what I saw, like it doesn't have a huge impact. Like nobody gets picked real quick, but you can benefit them by doing that. And then once they start to re-engage or the Hammond pulls off, you can switch back to heals and go forward. Also, I don't know if you're going to do this or not, but spamming back and forth very quickly. There's actually a slight, I think it's like a half-second conversion between songs when you flip them. So even though you flipped it on the screen, the song doesn't kick in till about a half second later. So if you're spamming back and forth, you're actually not getting any benefit back and forth. So be very mindful about when you're switching and the length of time that you're switching for. Just a little tidbit.
There's a one towards Z, not heads up. Something is good for this one. They're weak. They're weak. I got
Let's go back for a second.
They're weak. They're weak.
A little farther.
There's a one towards Z, not heads
So you are in front of everyone else. As Lucio, that's not necessarily you can get away with it because your speed, and oftentimes it's hard for you to hit or you to get hit by other people unless they have really good tracking. Um, so you'll often get away with this mistake, but the higher you get, the more you're going to get punished for it. Especially if they have someone with a stun, McCree flashbang, Brigitte bash, which is going to stick you. And once you're like stunned, your big advantage of mobility is gone, and you're going to be done. So you want to make sure that right now, and you can see it, there's only one person in your aura. They're somewhere behind you over here. You have no idea who that is or where they are and what's happening to them. So you want to make sure you position yourself where you can see everything in front of you in a way that makes you kind of like the captain of the team. You can, with your speed or healing, you can kind of coordinate and conduct the battle, basically lead the battle in the way that you want it to go. So in this case, I would have pushed off back, and then there was something a little later that I also wanted to mention. Oh, you had a really good boop opportunity,
They're weak. They're weak.
like a defensive boop opportunity. All right, so this is a good place to be back here because you have this support, this wall here as a defensive structure. All right, so you know the tracer's right there on you, and it's also on the Zen who is next to you. Actually, the Zen just got knocked out. But, yeah, right then and there, you had the tracer in the middle of you guys with the Hanzo, and somebody else, I think, was also there with you. That's a good opportunity for you to try to boop the tracer away so that cannot do the damage. You also have the Winston right there. Winston, you should never die to a Winston. Because you can very easily get out of Winston's range. Winston's Tesla cannon thing has a fairly small range, which you can either speed your way out of or boop him back so that he's out of the range. And you should always be in a position where he has to jump to get to you. And once he does that, his jump is on cooldown and he's very immobile. So you should never die to a Winston at any point ever, unless you're already like 1 health and he happens to like jump you or tickle you or whatever. But if you have all your cooldowns and at least 50% of your health, you should never die to a Winston. Ooh, unlucky.
I just need the
Again, you're in front, so you want to think about where your other team is. Yeah, see, yeah, they're dealing with a Winston in the back. That's on you. You should have seen one. You should have been behind the diva and behind your other tank, pushing them forward, and you should have been in a position where you could have recognized that the Winston was there. How did the Genji die to a Winston? Oh, maybe he got stunned. But anyway, like you should have been there to support them in that case.
Tracer discorded.
All right. Let's see. I All right. So I do like that you're aware of the busing strategy. That is always good. Um, but you also want to think about the big picture of the match. Um, in this case, your the rest of your team was engaging in a fight, and you left the fight to go bring the Genji, I believe, up to the fight. Let's just make sure I'm right on that. Yeah, it's a Genji. Genji is already a very mobile hero, one of the more mobile heroes in the game. So if your team's engaging in a fight and the person that's coming back is very mobile, I would take the priority of sticking with the fight and making sure that people are being sped around where they need to engage targets, and you're topping people off with health throughout the fight to make sure that they survive and you guys can win that fight. All right. Busing is good to keep in mind, but just it can be situational. This probably wasn't the best use. It didn't end up harming you guys in the end, but it could have, because you were left with Zen to solo heal for that fight, um, which is tough. Okay, doable, but tough. All right, the beat. One thing to know about the beat, it's also AOE, and there's also, I don't remember the timing on it, but actually, if someone is around a corner, not in line of sight, when you initially drop the beat, and you can cross that corner very quickly. So let's say someone was down, like behind this thing here, and you drop the beat here, and if they pop out, or if you can get in there, I think it's like within like a second or something. Sorry, I can't remember the timing on it. You'll actually give them that extra boost. It's very similar to the way that Zenyatta's orbs can kind of go around corners a bit. Like if you fire an orb as someone's like right here, um, and they like kind of peek a little bit and then go back that way, the orb will kind of loop around and get them anyway. It's very similar to that. So keep that in mind when you're dropping the beat. Is if you missed someone that was close because they were around a corner, you still might be able to get them if you're smart about your positioning. Um, Decent beat use because you have a Zen who has their ult. So you're more of an engager sustainer. So you guys are pushing in as a unit and engaging in that fight. That's fine. Okay, so I really like how you switched to speed when you saw that Zenyatta had popped trance. That's good. There's no point in you double healing like that. Zen's gonna sustain everyone for the 6-7 seconds that he's got that up. So that was good. One thing I did notice is that it was about 4-on-1 um, with the um, Hammond versus basically your entire team. And you had speed on. You guys aren't going anywhere. You guys were staying there and all focusing fire. So you might as well pop the heal. That's just a little tweak, but you might as well pop the heal just to get a little sustain. And then as soon as Hammond is done and you guys are topped off with whatever you need, you can speed boost to get people to an area.
I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna switch. It's not gonna work out with the both thing. With the receipt.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah. So the boops, like I understood your intention, and I think your intention was really good. It just was unlucky that it was Soldier that was right there. Um, what I think you were trying to do, and I like the idea, was boop that person back to give, I think it was your Diva and your Mercy, a little space to breathe. Um, but when you do that, make sure that you can then reposition yourself quickly into an area where you're not taking direct fire like that. Um, because that's what ended up happening. You ended up getting killed.
I thought we had the win.
That was a good boop. That was a really good boop.
We're supposed to have a Reaper that was supposed to kill us for that. How long did we have them for? How did he not kill us? Why?
All right, what do we got here? Triple tank solo support. Is that really what's gonna happen? Um, I mean, I hope not, but if so, so be it. I guess.
Still,
I mean, the reason you guys lost that first map was mostly because of your team comp. You did not have very many. Well, you had like half dive, um, and like a half dive is not going to work. Your Diva and your Winston. I mean, Diva switched halfway through, and the two of them were not coordinating their dives. Like that's not going to work. You guys are just going to feed. Um, yeah. Hopefully, I mean, this is a decent comp um, for this map. I mean, the Orisa halt hook combo is pretty powerful. So like maybe instead of the Rhine and Orisa, but I mean the Rhine's still fine. You can still hook people in. You got the boops, Diva's slight boops. You know that's fine.
oh, like jumped
You'll
up.
be able to take advantage of this well. Okay, yeah. So this is fine. You got Anna. Again, if you have that Anna as your second support, remember, no mobility, no self heal either. They don't have Anna does not have that passive, and you really don't want her to waste her grenade on herself. Um, you want to be the one that keeps her up. Her grenade is super powerful for the rest, especially Rhines. If like a Rhine gets into a Rhine on Rhine battle, that nade needs to be there in order for the Rhine to secure that without any support.
I mean, what? Whatever he jumped in. Most of the well, yeah, we had.
The reason wasn't there. It would be
Yeah, no, it's not the rich. You should go for free.
Mm, okay. One thing I'm just going to point out very quickly. Um, one of the things you want to work on if you want to continue playing Lucio is kind of internalizing his range, that aura. Um, know when your team is within it and know when they're not, so you're not overextending yourself. Right here where I have the camera paused, you are overextended. You are in front of the Rhine right now. You don't even need to be here. I understand trying to get in there for a boop and then kind of bouncing back, but if the boop's not necessary, you're not going to save someone from it. You might want to just stick back a little bit and still give that aura and amp it up when they need that healing, without putting yourself in danger. And the other thing I've noticed that I haven't talked about yet is the wall riding. Um, that's a huge advantage for Lucio. Put yourself, be off the ground as much as you can while still being useful to your team. It's unusual. There are very few heroes that can get vertical like Lucio, like Farah, and Mercy, and it makes them very hard to hit when they're doing that because it's not typical. You're forcing the other team to look up, and when they look up, they lose sight of who else is on the ground. They lose sight of the other members of your team. And I'm sure you kind of notice this when you're playing McCree. Like when you look up, you don't necessarily see what's going on the ground around you. You're concentrated on hitting this flying target. Um, so take advantage of that. Like force other people to look up to get you. Also, you can kind of bounce from place to place very quickly if you know how to wall ride and you know like the little secret paths that Lucio can take. Yeah. So see right back there. If I were you, um, instead of trying to take this tracer on the ground, what I would have done is put myself up on this wall, kind of slid back and forth, and force the tracer to come closer somewhere along this area down here, either spamming shots, distracting her while another member of your team from over here or from behind you comes and helps out, or just getting that boop into the well. Um, in order for Lucio to be effective, fully effective for his kit, like you want to be getting like a Boopa fight into the well here on Ilios. Oh, get that Mercy!
It doesn't matter. Kill them.
Good switch. You recognized. Oh, nice. That was good. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but the Tracer ulted and threw it on the ground. Anna was trying to get away from it to avoid the splash damage, um, and she was already injured. You having been on speed allowed her to get out of the range of that damage, and you just you saved Anna's life. That was spot on. That was great.
You had to double hook him.
Got the mercy. Almost, almost not.
So I have a feeling you're starting to spam, amp it up a bit. Um, you want to be a little more strategic about when and why you're using that. Um, because right back there, that one, there's another one here that like I guess it was okay. Like it was a little early for the engage, so you didn't get that like initial boost. Everybody was already topped up when you did it. Um, so maybe waiting a little bit longer on that one, and then this one here. like everybody on the screen that was in front of you that you could have known about seemed to be topped off. Um, but you can see that they're going to be engaging in a few seconds. So in that case, I would have just been on speed and saved your amped up for the next engagement. Yeah, see, they're pulling back now. There's no reason to use your amp in that case.
So we have 4 all.
Yeah, I understand you were trying to get that soldier who was already low, but yeah, you left the rest of your entire team. Um, they had no speed, they had no AOE healing, besides what Anna could have provided for them. And I do like how you were coordinating your songs based on the hog that was there. Hog, when he's ulting, cannot heal and he cannot walk very fast. He's a big, fat, slow target. Um, so yeah, like making sure he was topped off with heal and then pushing him along to try to catch that soldier. But when your hog disengaged, you should have disengaged too and come back. Um, and shuttled him back to the fight where he could have done a little more with his whole hog. I don't know how much time was left on it. I wasn't paying that close attention. Ooh, unlucky.
So get it to 99. Whatever you do, just get it to 99. He's low.
I got you, ma'am. Alright, let's just take it.
All right, that was good. Yeah, I see how you were able to get out of there. Wall riding makes it very hard for the enemy to hit you. Take advantage of those walls. Know where they are. Know how to use them. Ooh, sweet punch. Oh, this is where you get up and you boop. This is where you boop. Oh, ah. I wanted it for you. Ooh, a mercy. Call that mercy out. Ooh, that's a bummer.
Well, solo. No, we are to progress. We must train.
Yeah, he's low.
Ooh. 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 Gotta love that dead eye. That's fine because everybody's on point. No one's really going anywhere. Good clearing boot. All right, nice. Well, let's go back a second. Good amount of defensive assists so far. 2 offensive assists. Yeah, think about the timing of those amps. Also, if you didn't know, you only get the assists when your amp it up is on, which is a good, really good way to tell if you're timing your amps properly. Um, it seems like you're timing your healing ones good. You're doing those in the middle of fights. But when your team is engaging, pushing in um, for that speed boost to get them into the fight and get that fight going, that's where you seem to be lacking a little bit. That one's really hard. I'm not trying to make it seem like you're terrible at that. It's really hard as Lucio to get offensive assists. You got to be really coordinated as a team to make it happen. All right, so again, you are in front. I'm not really sure why. Um, and again, a good team will punish you. A good DPS or someone with stun will punish you for this. So don't get into this habit. Make sure that you are in a good position behind your front line where you can support everyone on your team. And if you notice, this is dropping. It was at 4, and then it went down to 3, and then 2, and it's probably going to drop even farther because I think you're going to continue on without people. 3, 1. Yeah, see. All right, this is good. At least you recognized and you turned around and went back. So, yeah, that's good. Okay, so speeding to get people where they need to be. You guys don't really know where you should be, but that's okay. Speeding to engage. Oh! What? Hmm. Good hook. Also, one thing is that I like that you are trying to be a support player. You are not, for the most part, overextending and trying to be a DSP stanky. I don't know if you ever watched any of his videos. Um, he was like he was like YouTube famous during the first year or so of Overwatch as being like a super aggressive Lucio, like always trying to find crazy boops and eliminating DPS flankers and that kind of stuff. And it was always frustrating watching those videos because yeah, it was cool and fun and like impressive that he was able to do that kind of stuff. But he was basically um, ignoring like the purpose of Lucio. And like the reason he never played for any professional team, even though like he was a Masters, Grandmasters, SR player, was because he didn't know how to play Lucio as a team. So I appreciate that you're actually playing Lucio the way Lucio is supposed to be played as a team and as a support player. Getting those picks where you need to, but not being stupid about where you are as a player. So that's really good. But the one thing I would say is when you do bring up this screen here, don't just look at your stats at the bottom. Look at your team comp. And you know that you have Mercy here, who's got the biggest amount of heals on your team. And there was something a second ago that just happened that I think is a good example of what I'm talking about. So this is fine. If you want to amp it up in the middle of a battle, you've got a bunch of people. You've got 4 people in there. Again, yes, it is just Mercy, so maybe it's not the best use. But by the time that you get your amp it up back in a second, in 12 seconds, the fight will just be about starting, so that's fine. But something I want to point out. So you were at like 150. McCree was super low, and you choose to amp it up right now to boost healing on the McCree. If your Mercy was dead, or you were solo healing for some reason, that would be a good move. But because you have Mercy on your team, save your amp it up and let Mercy heal that one target. Put yourself in a position where you're not going to take any more damage because you took a little bit of chip damage, took 50-ish. Let Mercy get that healing in there on McCree, and then you can save your amp it up for a second when they're about to engage. Your Ryan is about to go into that room, or they're about to come out and hit your Ryan. Save your amp it up for that when you can get a bigger burst healing on multiple targets who are going to need it in a second. See, you would have loved to have it right there. But you still got another 6-7 seconds on the cooldown. Boop, boop 'em, boop 'em, boop 'em. I like how you disengaged when you should. That was good. Too many times see people staggering as Lucio, and I'm like, you have the speed. Get away, run. Your Ryan should not have been there. There's not much you could have done about that. You do have ult, so I want to see you using that wisely. Nice. Boop. Hmm. Um. Yeah, that was suboptimal ult usage there. Um, Hammond's mines don't move, so 95% of the time, or at least you hope that your teammates have enough awareness not to walk into them. And they do 50 damage each, so it's not like if Ryan got hit by one or two of them, Ryan would have been fine. As long as you can get yourself out of the way and you are not critical on health, yeah, just especially with that fight being already won, it was just Hammond trying to delay on point. It was, in my opinion, not a good call on his part to engage in the first place, but they did, and they wasted their ult. Let them waste it. You made that engagement by Hammond, that stupid play by Hammond, worth it by basically wasting your ult. Um, yeah, little unfortunate, but it happens. Whatever. You should be able to get your ult fairly quickly um, if you're using your amps properly.
How? How does it do damage like that?
Ooh. I'll give you half a boot for that. Again, okay, right there. Amp it up. Ask yourself why. Is it useful? Because Amp it up has a 12-second cooldown. That is a huge amount of time in Overwatch. Um, as you know, like every second matters in Overwatch. So if something has a 12-second cooldown, that's pretty big compared to a lot of other abilities. Make sure you're using it to your fullest advantage right then and there. I didn't notice. Okay, look, we've got Hog who can self heal, um, Reaper who can sort of self heal off damage, but is a fairly low health target that you could top up fairly easily, fairly quickly within a few seconds if you just had him sit within your aura. And then you have Reinhardt here, who's about 2/3, maybe half health at the time that you first decided to amp it up. Um, which, if this was a normal fight, if this was a fight going on right now, amp it up, fine. Top everybody off, keep it going so they can sustain and hopefully pick up those kills. But it's not a fight, and to top that all off, Mercy's here. Um, let Mercy heal that tank. You can sit with your healing aura on and get a little ult charge from that, but don't waste that key, amp it up. Because the fight's over right now. It's won. It's Brigitte, but like no one. If you have 6 people on point, 6v1, no one should die ever. Interesting Valk choice by your Mercy.
I really don't know how to.
No, no, I'm right here. Don't.
Mm. Are they gonna flip this? They're gonna flip it.
Now that's
What is your Rhine doing? All right, so speeding them into the point. I like it. I like it.
Win the fight now.
Now you wish you had Amp right now. Oh, that could have been a huge boot. Stupid Brigitte. So, I actually don't mind that sound barrier that you just used for several reasons. Um, First, being in that previous fight, they used both the soldier ult and the blade. So those were your two big um, counter ults that you should want to save your ult for. Um, Both of those will provide enough shields to let your team survive through both of those. Um, and so using it there was fine. Also, your Mercy did not have her Valk at the time, so you guys were not in a good spot. So it was a decent use. I'll let that slide, even though actually not let that slide. Like it was a good use. It was a good use for your ult there. Unfortunately, you guys are not picking up the kills that you need. Cheeky doesn't make it.
They're overextending on me if anybody can help. So I'm jumping
Heroes never die.
What? How did your Mercy die with Valk to a Zarya? What?
All of a sudden, this soldier gets good.
I mean, unlucky. Um, let's see. That was a. Let's call it a. Like 3 minutes minus 3 minutes, so it was about a 13-minute match with close to 12,000 healing. That's not bad. Would have liked to seen a little more with Lucio, especially with like running Rhine most of that map for two of the maps. So you had like Rhine Hog, um, like those slow non-dive tanks. You'd like to see like 1,000 to 1,200 healing a minute, which means that you want to think about when you're using your amps. That's all that says to me, is that you want to consider when is the optimal time to use those amps, which is a lot of what we were talking about throughout here. Amps also put yourself in advantageous positions to take advantage of your kit, like being behind the front line when you need to be, also being up on walls to reduce the amount of deaths. Lucio, you should be like 6 or less deaths per match. You should be the last one to die in a fight. If you're dying at all. If you're the first to die, that means you're way out of position. And a lot of times you should be able to, like, if you recognize you lose 2-3 people in a fight, you disengage. You get out of there. You taxi back whoever you can, but don't just throw yourself on point unless there's a good reason for you to die on point, like if you're stalling or trickling in just to at the end of a match, overtime, that kind of thing. But yeah, 8 deaths not terrible, but try to bring that down. Yeah. All right. Hope that helped. That was a good match to look at. There's a lot of good things you did on Lucio. I like your Lucio play, but there's definitely some tweaks we can make to push that up a bit. Yeah. Let me know how your season's going, and let me know how life's going. Yeah, keep the videos coming. I'm enjoying doing this. I like the gameplay that I'm seeing. It's pretty awesome. All right, see you later.